Is it really possible that you can heal yourself simply by manipulating a photograph of yourself? Well, that's one of the applications of what is called scalar light therapy or scalar light healing. This is a form of non physical, subtle energy that's hypothesized to carry information without diminishing over distance, making it fairly unique. If you've heard of prana, chi, ki, life force, vital force, we discuss in this episode how those relate to scalar light, as well as a bunch of other healthy and mostly free ways of increasing scalar light. Things like intention, meditation, breath work, visualization, sound therapy, surrounding yourself with nature and or crystals, and other ways of capitalizing on this phenomenon to improve your health. It is definitely far out there, and I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't heard a number of people that I follow in the wellness world mention that they noticed profound differences in their own health from using it over long periods of time. Perhaps it's one of the core mechanisms behind all those healthy practices. And this is one area where modern science is still lagging far behind. Our guest this week is Tom Paladino. He is a scalar light researcher who's working to bring this technology to the world and make it more available. To try to understand the scientific basis for this field, I asked our guest what exactly has been studied around it, and he mentioned that the National Institute of Health recognizes that there is an emerging field of study called bioenergetic therapies, to which this falls under. He also mentioned that it is based on the work of Nikola Tesla, Antoine Pryor, Thomas More. We discuss the theory of morphogenic fields, which essentially states that there are energetic fields or patterns that guide the development and organization of living organisms. As I like to think of it, the scaffolding that determines how things are built and rebuilt in the body. You can contrast scalar energy to the more widely recognized and scientifically understood electromagnetic energy. According to scalar light researchers, those are the only two known energies in the universe, and each is governed by distinct scientific laws. Tom has brought this technology to thousands around the world and achieved some pretty miraculous results. Now, whether you choose to take him up on his special program or simply just to use this as justification to double down on your typical health practices, such as the ones I mentioned earlier, I hope you find the concept of scalar light as fascinating as I did. You can find the resources and everything we discuss in the show notes for this episode at mindbodypeak.com/168. I'll also put a link to Tom's website so you can explore more about scalar light, the programs, the instruments, and the experience of real users. In other news, we recently launched some pages on the Outlier website dedicated to specific goals and topics. Whether you're interested in fat loss or cognition or performance or hydration, gut health, stress reduction, you can just go to the top of the website under the topics menu, choose your goal, and there you'll find some powerful tips to help you along your journey and a hand curated list of the articles, the podcasts, the products I've used that help with that goal, and a whole lot more. Instead of searching through about 300 blog posts that I've published over the years and another nearly 200 podcast episodes, I wanted to put that all on one page to make your life easier. Check it out. Let me know what you think. And you can also access those pages by going to outlier.com/topics. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, sit back, relax, and let's bring in Paladino. Tom, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks so much. Pleasure to be here. Thank you, Nick.
Well, let's dig in. So far today, what are the unusual non-negotiables you've done for your health, your performance, and your bioharmony?
That's a great opening question. I always start the day off with prayer and thanksgiving. So that's non-negotiable. And I eat well. I usually have a sensible diet, and I always look forward to having goals. I set goals every day, and one of my goals is to have a productive and fruitful discussion with you.
Yeah, and it's early there for you. It's the end of the day over here for me, but so you've already gotten those in. What does your morning like goal setting and gratitude practice look like?
It's very realistic. And when it's realistic, it's tenable. It is attainable. I have two or three goals every morning. Um, Again, one of those goals is to have a productive discussion with you. I'm going to be in the lab performing some research later today, and some correspondence to fill out the day at the end. Simple goals, but again, doable, tenable. And that way, I see daily progress. I see weekly progress. This is what my research is all about. You have to make progress.
Well, take us to the beginning. What is scalar energy or the many other names it goes by?
Scalar energy, scalar light. I frequently say people are experts. They don't realize it, but they're experts. It's sunlight. It's the natural light of the sun and the stars. I'm not working with electricity. I'm working with the energy that is the animating force of the sun and the stars. I've developed instruments to capture that animating energy. And in so doing, we're going back to nature. I want to make that very clear. Even though I work with engineered instruments, I'm going back to the first cause. I'm going back to the animating force of the universe, the sun and the stars. And it's a benign energy. It's, if you will, it's a life-giving energy without consequence because there's no chemicals involved. It's natural energy.
So break down what that energy is, because it's not just photons of light in the visible light spectrum from 350 nanometers all the way up to the infrared range. It's a bit different.
Precisely. There are no photons. This is massless. It's non-physical. So what am I getting at? Some people might call that intelligence or Christ consciousness. Others might call that orgone energy or 0 point energy. That's what I'm working with. So to be clear, there's electromagnetic energy. It's very real, electricity and magnetism. And the other energy spectrum is scalar energy. It's massless. It pervades the universe. So it's my contention that this is the God force or the energy that's all encompassing.
Are there other like recognized instruments to measure such energy?
That's an excellent question. There are none. This is all encompassing. This is infinite energy. It pervades the universe. Per se, there's no basic unit. There's no liter. There's no gallon. There's no foot. There's no meter. How do you measure this? You cannot measure infinity. And this is one of the drawbacks right now. People are trying to define this. I understand. We want to measure. We want to at least have some type of data on the energy. How do you have data on what's infinite? There is no basic unit. And I've thought about that frequently, but if there's not one quanta, there's not one package of energy. It's infinite energy.
I think there's a device called the squid device, and that's used by some to try and measure what I'd assume is some form of subtle energy that is given off by living beings.
I'm unfamiliar with that, so you got me there. I don't
Okay,
know.
but I guess we should define what is the human biofield and how does that relate to all of this?
Well, we're going to use the term energy or human biofield. I believe everybody's made out of flesh and blood. This is me, Tom, before you. And then I believe everybody has an energy field attached to their photograph. Now, to be clear to your audience, I never work with people in person. I work with their photograph, which is their energy field. So this is the new science in which we're beyond physical constraints. We only work with energy fields or intelligence. My intelligence, my signature is on that photograph. So to be clear, I only work with photographs. I don't work with people biologically. This is the new science in which we're finally working at the level of consciousness or the level of intelligence. We're not working at a chemical level. Now that's so important because we're, if you will, we're transcending the biochemical atmosphere, the biochemical terrain. I don't want to work on a biochemical level. I want to work at a level of intelligence.
So at this point, I'm sure some people listening in have their eyebrows raised. You just said that you work not with the living being in front of you, but with their photograph. And if this was a potential that was readily accessible, you'd imagine that it would be practiced widely and it'd be used because it's much more convenient. It's cheaper. There's like a ton of advantages of this. Is there research around people working with photographs to elicit biological responses in flesh in the real person?
It's limited, to say the least. It's limited, and I'll tell you why, for a few reasons. Number one, you have to accept that scalar energy is another energy besides that of electromagnetic energy. Number two, you have to develop instruments that control, harness scalar energy. And then three, you have to prove that this energy can perform a function, that it's not theory, that there's practical applications. Well, it's taken me 50 years to follow those three steps. And today I'm here before your audience and I'm saying that I've accomplished those steps, but very few researchers have gone that road that I have. You're absolutely right. This technology is incredible. Scalar technology will change the social order for the better. We're going to see an improvement in our well-being, soul, mind, and body, and then we can extrapolate this to the economic forum. This has great potential to improve industry, commerce, and industry. Now, put all of that together, we need to introduce this concept. People need to realize that there is another energy.
When I was looking into you, I came across some of your work, and you mentioned that the National Institute of Health recognizes that this is one form of what they call bioenergetic therapies. Can you explain that?
It's opening up. The National Institute of Health has worked with practitioners who have energy instruments and who can demonstrate that in person with individuals. So we've gone as far as to say that energy being projected into a person locally, that the National Institute of Health would recognize that. Now, has the National Institute of Health recognized that energy can be projected into a photograph? No. Nobody's ever done it. Nobody's ever given their assent, their agreement to that. Why? My work is groundbreaking. Again, I never work with people. These instruments are only designed to work with photographs. So I think I'm a good, frankly, 10 years ahead of the curve here.
Ian Mitchell also mentioned doing something similar where he works with photographs and he's said that he's elicited some pretty incredible results from that. But when you say that they recognize that you can project energy onto people, what form of energy is that they recognize already?
That's electromagnetic energy. See, this is the divide that we see right now. The scientific community is still almost single-mindedly concentrating, focused on electromagnetic energy. To consider that there's two energies is really, that's an abrupt statement for many scientists today. So we have to overcome that. We have to teach people that there's two energies, that there's two dimensions.
Yeah, so that would be electromagnetic. But what about other forms of energy? Like there's radio frequencies. Wouldn't that be a form of energy also?
Oh, sure. You look at the electromagnetic spectrum, it's whatever frequency you're working with, we have to look into each frequency, each range of frequencies and say, what is the upshot? What are the results to be experienced with that type of energy, if you will, in person, on the physical body, on the soma. Keep in mind, I work with the energy field around the body, so to speak. I work with the energy field that's projected from the body. I never work in a chemical sense. I work maybe with what some people might call the aura or the force field. Well, we haven't accepted in a, if you will, mainstream media or mainstream science the projection of aura or a force field.
Yeah, we haven't accepted it, but virtually all old ancient cultures around the world have accepted it in some form.
Yes. So to be quite blunt, academia and the scientific community is behind the times. Now, I'm going to use other names to bring this down to a common denominator. What's the point? Scalar light. Other terms are chi, prana, consciousness. Some people call it God force. Others might call it pyramid energy or ether energy. Some people might call it plasma, or others might call it organoodic force. All of those terms have been used throughout millennia by different cultures who recognize this energy. Okay? Even though we haven't been able to measure it, we still recognize that there is an energy from the sun and the stars, and it's revered by many cultures. Now, again, the drawback is it's hard to fathom something that's infinite. That's what scalar energy is. You're never going to be able to measure infinite.
Yeah. Are there events occurring in the natural world that lead to an increase or a surge in scalar energy?
Yes. Okay, the scalar energy emanates from the sun and the stars. And every time we have a solar flare, that really is a projection of plasma, a projection of scalar energy. Now, it's also manifests as electromagnetic energy. But we see the fact that if scalar energy is from the sun and the stars, it affects everything. It is the cause of life. It maintains life. So to be clear, the first energy from the sun and the stars is scalar energy. Then electricity is a derivative of that energy. So the primary energy is scalar energy. It's a double helix. That's a scalar wave that's been photographed. And if you can imagine this double helix emanating from a star, and then when the helix breaks down, if you will, one arm of the helix becomes electricity, the other arm of the helix becomes magnetism. It's that simple.
And how is that photo taken? Is that with like Kirlian photography?
Yes, very good. This is a time-lapse Kirlian photography. This is a Tesla coil, okay, inside a pyramid, and you could see the projection of the energy. It's always heavenward. It's always skyward. Look at that. It's perfect energy. It's a double helix. And if you look at it in relation to our DNA code, it's the same ratio and proportion. So to cut to the chase, the double helix of scalar energy downloads into our DNA. We are DNA. We are, if you will, a standing wave of scalar energy. We are scalar energy.
So you mentioned that required a Tesla coil. Does that build on his work? Was he aware of scalar energy?
Tesla was the first man to create and harness scalar energy. He was quite advanced. The latter part of his career was devoted to wireless energy, what he called radiant energy. Few people realized that that wireless energy was scalar energy. He gave up on AC electricity. If you really look at his career closely, he was no longer interested in induction motors. The motor that he accessed were the stars. This is his brilliance. We still haven't caught up to him.
When you say the motor he accessed was the stars, what does that mean? How does he go about that?
For instance, he built a tower in Colorado Springs in 1899 out in the middle of a farming community, a ranching community. And that tower did not have any moving parts. Now, what are you doing in the middle of the Rockies building a tower without moving parts? Where's the motor? The motor was the stars. He was successful in capturing energy from Colorado Springs at an elevation of 6,000 feet without a nearby power plant, so to speak. So he harnessed the energy of the stars. That's the future, people. Not having to worry about power plants, oil, coal, hydrogen, natural gas, wind farms, simply extracting the energy from the stars. Clean, free energy, energy in abundance.
How did he do it though? How did he harness that energy?
You have to have this technology. You have to have this understanding how to capture that energy. I'll show the audience my laboratory. This is a scalar energy instrument. I'm pointing to it. This instrument does not have any moving parts. I can capture the energy from this instrument, from the sun and the stars. These are Tesla coils. They act like a miniature star. They can illuminate a light bulb in my hand.
And for those listening in, Tom held up a light bulb next to the Tesla coils and did not actually plug it in, did not touch it to the Tesla coil, just in the vicinity, and it lit up.
So this is the future. I'm convinced of that. And it solves problems. This technology solves so many problems. Those of you in the listening audience who want a green revolution, this is it. Why? This does not imperil the ecosystem. There's no chemicals. This is benign energy without chemicals. There is no radioactivity. There's no physical mass.
So clearly, your technology has some Tesla underpinnings based on the Tesla coil I see behind you. Is it just based on Tesla, or were there other people, scientists, researchers, that it was inspired by?
There's a family by the name of Hieronymus. They're American inventors, and they left an impression upon me. I was able to work with the Hieronymus inventors, and in so doing, I was able to, if you will, step into their laboratory. They opened their laboratory to me. I never met the inventor, Galen, but I met his wife, Sarah. And that's how I had my practical hands on application of scalar energy.
Yeah, there's a documentary on Nikola Tesla, the Tesla files, and I'm sure others. I'm not sure how accurate they are, but they definitely portray a fascinating man with all kinds of contributions to the world. And sadly, a lot of them never saw the light of day.
Yeah. And perhaps why have we not seen the full bounty of Tesla's work? It's suppressed. This is free energy. Scalar energy, the energy of the sun and the stars, that's free energy. The stars give off free energy. You don't need a grid system for a star. The universe is the grid system. You don't need an infrastructure, is what I'm getting at. There are no satellites. I don't need satellites. I don't need substations. I don't need electrical wires. All I need are stars. That's the best way to power the world, with stars, without the need of an infrastructure.
I wonder how many of those types of inventions and devices there are, because I interviewed a man named George Wiseman, and he has a Brown's gas system, and he showed that you can install it onto a car and you can like quadruple the fuel economy of a truck, for example. But of course, that doesn't come close to touching free energy. Are you using that system to power your house, or does it have like higher, more valuable use cases?
Eventually, I want to. I'm working right now with quantum health, what I consider to be the health, the photographic force field health. I believe in the future God will give me the wisdom to light up a building, to reproduce Tesla's work, to be able to use scalar energy to power homes, to power factories. But that's probably 4 or 5 years off.
Tom, are you familiar with bioresonance machines and like how they can go about diagnosing without actually like non-invasively diagnosing all kinds of different health things? Is that related to like what you do?
I think that they're related in some way, but with the main distinction is I don't know if those instruments are scalar instruments. Again, there's an entirely different prospect here. One is the apple, the other is the orange. But I've heard of bioresonance instruments. I've seen them in operation, and some people say that with these instruments they can diagnose. Now, I'm not efficient. I don't have any hands-on experience, so all power to them. Science is moving forward.
Yeah, and people have mentioned that I've talked to that have used them pretty extensively, that like practitioners, that is, that they are able to find deficiencies and toxicities that came back as negatives on the typical blood labs. And once they did a more thorough investigation, deeper panels, other forms of testing, then they validated what the bioresonance machines said, but they would have overlooked them had they had just followed like traditional approaches, because they came back normal initially, at least.
Yeah, there's always a curve here of learning and a curve of introduction. I'm still experiencing that curve of introduction. It takes time, to have a groundswell of support for my work or any new scientific advancement. It takes time, and I'm okay with that. I realize you have to educate people. I'm still in the process of educating.
So there's really no way of measuring or quantifying anything to do with scalar energy or the human biofield or anything like that. It seems like we're so far advanced in many different facets of health and science that we should have at least some way of maybe even just a proxy of like your scalar state.
I wish there were, but that's one of the drawbacks. How do you convince people that this works? Only by the outcome, by testimonies. That's the only way I can prove to people that this works. I've never been able to measure the energy. The only exception is if I take a voltmeter close to those Tesla coils, there's no electromagnetic signal, meaning what? That the scalar energy signal is so strong it overrides the electromagnetic environment.
Because otherwise it would be producing an electromagnetic field because the componentry.
Exactly. It's not electricity or magnetism. So I can prove that the negation of the electromagnetic force field close to those Tesla coils is indicative of a scalar energy presence, a local scalar energy environment.
I see. And do they like negate each other? Like if you were to look at them, I don't even know how you look at them, but like do they offset each other? Is that why you're saying it's able to like, register zero magnetic field?
Yeah, they negate one another. You can either have an electromagnetic field or a scalar field. Again, let me go back to this time-lapse photograph of a scalar wave. That scalar wave, within that scalar wave, you won't find any electricity. It's a different dimension. If this scalar wave breaks down, one arm, one of the helix will become electricity, the other will become magnetism. Then you have electromagnetic energy, but it won't resemble that whatsoever. It'll be a sinusoidal wave. Electricity and magnetism operate and function in a perpendicular sense, whereas scalar energy works in a parallel sense.
Are you familiar with the concept of morphogenic fields?
Yes, this exactly what I'm speaking of. Rupert Sheldrake, a theorist, has advanced that notion that there is intelligence in the universe, and that intelligence eventually produces the physical reality. He's absolutely right.
Yeah, and the way I've heard it described is that there's like energy fields or some kind of patterns that guide and shape the development of tissues, of cells and tissues, and overall like living organisms.
That's at the very heart of my work. This instrument is non-physical. It broadcasts intelligence, instructions. Well, again, I'd rather be at the level of intelligence than at the lower level of chemical. Why? It's the intelligence that eventually decides the physical universe. Why not stay in the driver's seat, which is intelligence?
Well, Tom, what are some of the outcomes that you're able to get when you work with people, and how exactly do you work with them? You mentioned that you have a photo of yourself currently, but also I imagine with your clients, and you use that somehow to get different outcomes from them.
Thank you. I'll explain. Whether it's one photograph
Oh,
or
wow.
20 photographs or 20,000 photographs, this instrument can work with thousands. It actually can work with millions of photographs in a day. Let's say somebody came to me and said, Tom, I have herpes. I said, well, just send me your photograph and I'll perform this function. What am I getting at? I have a photograph of the herpes virus and my photograph side by side. And I put these two photographs in the instrument side by side. There's a sharing of information. Again, all of this is intelligence information. The information of herpes, if I can locate it, identify it in my quantum field, I can eradicate it. So if this has intelligence, I can find that intelligence in me, in my quantum field, and bring it to a state of chaos, not by a chemical action, but by intelligence, but by scalar action. So a photograph of a microbe allows me to identify that microbe and negate the intelligence of the microbe, negate the intelligence of the molecular intelligence of the microbe. In so doing, after I work with people, people tell me, Tom, whatever you've done, I no longer have symptoms of herpes, or I feel better. Or many people will say, I went to my physician and the physician ordered a PCR test. And after the work with Scalar, I don't have a viral load for herpes. Now, that cannot be explained by Newtonian physics. That cannot be explained by Western medicine. It's not. It's a new branch of physics.
Tom, how do you know that when you're holding them next to each other that you're not going to amplify them or change the like side effect profile? How do you know it's going to be a beneficial?
That's a good point. It's the way the instrument is calibrated, the way the energy works. Anytime I introduce a microbe into the instrument looks for the signature. It's always signature. It's not a chemical, and negates the signal or negates the signature. So we keep it at the level of intelligence. There's no chemical action here. So that's the signal. And then by eradicating the signal, it ceases to exist.
Is it a molecular signal or an electromagnetic signal or some kind of other like scalar signal or something?
It's a scalar signal. All of my work is 100% scalar energy. I believe scalar energy actually holds together molecules, which is the intelligence that holds together a molecule. It's not the molecule itself. It's not an electron. It's not a proton. So if you imagine this is the herpes virus, and you can negate the bonds, you can negate the intelligence of herpes, it falls apart.
And I'm guessing when it falls apart, there's no like die-off Herxheimer reaction or anything negative like that?
Yes. Why? Because we did not imperil this microbe on a electromagnetic basis. We did not attack the microbe on a chemical basis. We simply negated its force field, its energy field. On account of the fact that all of my work is non-physical, non-chemical, you can never have a physical or a chemical reaction. So what does that mean? With all of my work, there's never an allergic reaction. There's never a die-off. Nobody ever has a pimple. Nobody has any type of digestive problem. Working through a photographic force field, it's all intelligence. You cannot have an allergic reaction to your photograph.
So this is different than the work of Dr. Rife. He used frequency, and this is that kind of frequency.
That's correct. Now, let me say this. Rife, from what I can understand, was using electromagnetic energy, and he could send electromagnetic energy into the human body. He worked in person, and he could negate a pathogen or a disease. And he was very good at that. He was excellent. There's two distinctions with my work. I don't work with electromagnetic instruments, and I never work with people. I work with force fields. A lot of my ideas have been spawned by Rife's work, but Rife worked in person. I work at a distance, so to speak. I work through a photograph.
Does the photograph matter, like what you're wearing, what your expression is? Like, it seems like that your signature would change based on like your physical appearance in the photo itself.
What I've noticed is a photograph is always in real time. This photograph is probably 4 years old, but it still captures my blood pressure now. It captures who I am now. It captures my demeanor now. It captures my organ functions now. So the photograph, if you will, transcends time and space. You cannot transcend time and space with electricity and magnetism. The electromagnetic energy is one fixed point in time. Scalar energy transcends time. It's past, present, and future. And frankly, the only time that matters is the present moment with scalar energy.
Gotcha. And not to be too blunt, but to play devil's advocate, how do you know this isn't just placebo effect, that you get a photo, someone tells you what they want to work on, and then you put the photo next to the machine and you put your intention into it, or however you do it physically, and then they feel better because they believe that they're going to feel better?
I believe in part some of it is placebo effect, because when you give the person this assurance that what we're doing is safe and will help them, then there is some type of placebo there. But nonetheless, I've never seen a placebo test or a placebo event which could reduce the herpes virus to an undetectable no viral load. Test after test that comes to us, people tell us they no longer have a viral load for herpes. Now, I've never been able to meet anybody. I've never met anybody who can do that psychically.
Yeah. And for those listening in, Tom showed two photos of test results. I'm assuming those are after working with you, and that the result beforehand was the opposite, that they tested positive, but those photos showed the negative test results. So you've established there's definitely a use case for working with different conditions. What about people who don't have any conditions per se?
It still enhances their health. Many people say, Tom, whatever you've done, I have a very deep dream state now, and I'm calmer. The energy seems to balance the chakras. Now, keep in mind, if this is scalar energy, a double helix, then it's probably going to balance our chakras. So what am I getting at? I'll match these two up. A double helix scalar wave is going to download into our chakras, into our brain waves. That's my contention. This has always been my theory, my thought. And if that's accurate, It helps us. It helps our memory. Many people say it makes them calmer. Some people say they can give up drugs or alcohol through this program. We just don't know what's in that infinite energy, that double helix. We just don't quite understand how that downloads into us, but it does. And I contend that the spinning scalar energy, the double helix, causes the spinning of our chakras. So if you want to realign the chakras and the brain waves, you do it with the spinning vortex because the chakras are spinning vortices.
I would love to see say a QEEG brain map before and after to see like how that would change. I mean, the different chakras in the head and around the head. And I mean, I don't know if there's any other good correlates throughout the body for the other organ systems, maybe HRV for the heart. Not sure exactly what else you'd want to check going down the system, but maybe even blood work would change. Have you seen that?
I've seen before and after blood panels, and they were promising. They were promising. We have a nutrient program that I'll get into, but I would like to see that myself. Somebody with, if you will, wired up with performing an EKG, and then simultaneously will download if you will, the chakra balancing, and let's see how that has an immediate influence upon their brain waves.
Yeah, and if you do something like that, I don't think being able to quantify other facets of this technology matters as much because you can actually quantify the outcome, and people care usually more about the outcome unless you're a scientist, and then all you care about really is the mechanisms.
Yes, you're right. And I'll say this. I've met many scientists, and in their own right, they're brilliant and hardworking, good people, but they can't take that leap. They can't accept the fact that there's two energies, and even though we can't measure this energy, it's real. You know, they want something on paper. They want to be able to measure. They want something that can be quantified. How can you quantify infinity? Scalar energy is an infinite waveform. So, step one is faith. You have to have some type of faith that this other energy exists. That's a good point.
What makes this better than tuning your human biofield or your chakras or your aura, whatever you want to call it, with more traditional tools such as either meditation or even like sound healing, something like that?
If somebody has that pecking order, so be it. And whatever you value, so be it. To be clear, one of the reasons why I pray every day, it balances my chakras. It calms me. Now, I can do that through an instrument, but I realize very few people on the planet have a scalar energy instrument. So in substitution, how do you balance your chakras? Stay calm. Avoid problems, especially avoid people who are not of your best interest. And pray and meditate. You can keep your chakras aligned in so doing. So, if anything, my research will introduce and reincorporate the fact that prayer and meditation are very powerful. It's my contention that praying, is a scalar wave. When you pray, you're broadcasting scalar energy. Well, that makes sense because scalar energy transcends time and space. A prayer transcends time and space. Scalar energy produces a favorable outcome. Prayer produces a favorable outcome. So we could see that prayer is an incredible tool, a powerful tool.
That's great. Are there any other tools that you know of that are accessible that have impacts on scalar energy?
Yes. Go out for a walk in nature. Listen to some inspiring music. Have a great conversation. Eat a balanced meal. Maybe go boating or light exercise. All of that is part of this normal way of living. Make no distinction here. I am going back to nature. I'm going back to the initial energy, the primary energy of the universe, scalar energy, which is a unifying principle.
This makes me wonder if we're looking on the biochemical realm for to break down the benefits of exercise, wondering, okay, we take this molecule here, we take that molecule there, we combine them, and hopefully we get the benefits of exercise in a pill or two. But perhaps the largest benefit of exercise and healthy eating and all these things that are well known to be healthy is not on the physical, biochemical, molecular level, and it's actually on a scalar level.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. You know, God bless everybody in their desire to understand nature. That's wonderful. But it has to be driven by energy. Why? Energy, light is fundamental. There's only one concept in creation that's fundamental: light, energy. Light energy dictates everything. It's fundamental. So light, scalar light, is really the, if you will, the animating force of everything. It dictates everything.
Following that, are there any substances that we can ingest that improve or increase scalar light?
I think we do that. When we eat natural food that's nutritious, well, what is that food? It's taking in sunlight, starlight. And that's really where we're getting our nutrition. Yeah, there's a chemical consequence, but at the very core of that, you're taking in chemical instructions, yes, but more importantly, you're taking in scalar instructions through the food. For instance, my program called Nutrient Program, I actually take photographs of nutrients. This is a photograph of riboflavin. It's magnified. Again, I never administer anything in a chemical sense. I simply take a photograph of riboflavin and I place it next to my photograph. Yes, it's that simple. And there's no human interpretation with any of my work. So the signature of riboflavin enters into me. I receive the energy of riboflavin, the scalar energy of riboflavin. This is how I receive my multivitamin every day. I do not take multivitamins. I energetically receive riboflavin that's downloaded into me. That's my multivitamin, energetically. Now, what's the point? Well, if I can do that with an instrument, then I'm sure the human body is some way incorporating natural food, antioxidants, vitamins, minerals, etc., and incorporating that in a scalar sense, not in a chemical sense, by way of information.
So when you put that nutrient next to your photo, does the scalar energy or the intelligence of whatever it is know how much to provide you, or can you overdose on it essentially?
That's a great question. I've never overdosed. I've worked with millions of people. Nobody's ever overdosed. Now, how is it that I could work with millions of people and never have an overdose? Well, first and foremost, it's not a chemical. But secondly, the instructions from God, scalar energies from God, God will decide how much of the energy of riboflavin a person needs. Without those inbuilt instructions, my work would be flawed. I would not do this. But it's not a chemical, so it's mistake proof. When you're working at the level of intelligence, it's mistake proof. At the chemical level, then you have to use human reasoning. My work is with divine intelligence. There's no mistake. At the level of human reasoning, a chemical level, there are mistakes.
This makes me think that for something like vitamin D, where there's tremendous variability between people, sometimes people take 10,000 IU and they get into a healthy range. Some people go above the healthy range from 10,000 IU. I wonder if you were to use the vitamin D signature on a number of people, if you found out their, like, whatever range it brought them into, say 30 nanograms a deciliter, 40, if they went above that, if they're more likely to, like, with via supplementation, if they were more likely to have symptoms, or if like that's like their natural ideal set point, even if it conflicts with what some of the research says is ideal. Maybe there's like protective reasons that their body is keeping their vitamin D down below what's considered optimal by modern scientific standards.
I think that's brilliant. And we need people to step forward and say, Tom, I'll perform an experiment with you before and after. No, the sky is the limit here. I would love that. And I agree with you. There are accepted limits and ranges, but everybody's different. That's what's so unique about people. There is no common diet. There is no one diet because everybody's different. My diet is, my nutritional desires and needs is different than that of others. This is what I like about my work. I let the energy decide how much of riboflavin, the energy of riboflavin, I assume. I don't want to have to measure out or with an IU, an international unit, adjudicate what people should take every day. I work with 500,000 photographs today. So there's no possible way that I could decide what each person, what their nutritional needs are.
So when you do this, the nutrient program, do you actually include all of the necessary essential nutrients people need, or how do you choose which ones to use?
Yes, I do. I have all the amino acids. I have every vitamin, every mineral, antioxidant that I can get a photograph of, and in so doing, it's, if you will, it's across the board. I think I'm very successful. You know, even sulforaphane, even different types of phytochemicals, etc. So in total, I have 350 photographs of nutrients. And the energy from those nutrients is always downloaded into the person's quantum field. So to answer your question, 350 photographs is really a broad approach to nutrition.
With the vitamins and minerals, there's often interactions in the biochemical plane. Are you going to have those? Like, for example, if you have too much calcium, you're not going to absorb magnesium. So how does this work with those?
Automatically, without my intervention. Again, if this were not divine energy, then there would be mistakes. I've worked with actually millions of people now. And with working with millions of people, I've never had a complaint. If there is some type of drawback in a chemical sense, the fact that we don't work with chemicals and we're working energetically, it's an entirely different cause and effect relationship. There is no chemical consequence. You cannot have any biochemical reaction. Why? I don't work with chemicals. So working at the level of intelligence, it's mistake proof. And I don't say that to be coy with you. I mean every word of that. My work is mistake proof because I work with divine intelligence.
Okay, so we've talked about 2 different programs you have. Are there any others?
There are. We have a program called Natural Foods. We'll actually take photographs of natural foods and we can download that into people. So if I took a photograph of watermelon, now these are magnified photographs, watermelon, and I wanted the phytochemicals, the flavonoids of watermelon, I would simply place my photograph in the instrument with watermelon. Then I receive energetically the benefit of watermelon without the chemical consequence. So this is the easy way of doing things. I'm going to make this distinction. Let's say, 30, 40 years ago, we were still mailing letters, snail mail, and that would deliver a message. But that's the physical way, and the mail could be lost or could be torn up or it could be delayed, as opposed to doing energetically by email, where you're working at the energetic plane, the non-physical, you're just sending a message by email. Well, doesn't it make a lot more sense, people, to send an email, which is instantaneous, at the energetic level than snail mail at the physical level? Well, the same thing. Why not? By way of analogy, why not receive our nutrients energetically, whether instantaneously, rather than having to eat all the time and to have to suffer those chemical consequences?
What about for particular goals? Say someone wants to improve their performance, whether it's cognitive or athletic, or they want to slow down their rate of biological aging, they want to find a new partner. Can you accomplish this like wide variety of goals with your programs also?
Yeah, many people, even athletes, come to me. That's a good point. And they say their athletic performance is enhanced. So usually after 2 or 3 months, a person's athletic performance or their memory is enhanced. I'll speak to this point. I've unveiled a new program in which the energy is stronger. I focus the energy. And this has actually helped me recently in the past month with my back pain. I played sports as a kid, and it's helped me with my back posture, and it's helped me with my back pain. And I'm actually stronger. I'm physically stronger now because this energy is concentrated. It's like a laser-like focus. That's the best way I could put it. So what's the point? Even at my age, my athletic performance is enhanced. And it has, if you will, realigned my back. I'm 64 years of age. So this divine intelligence has helped me immeasurably throughout my life. And as I discover new facets, I bring that out to the public. I think this is going to be the game changer. The day is coming. One of my goals, Nick, I want to be able to work with 1 billion photographs a year. That's one of my goals.
Is this harnessing the phenomenon that's sometimes called quantum entanglement?
Yes, exactly. That's brilliant. Now, if my photograph represents me and I can have an instantaneous communication with my aura, my force field, that's quantum entanglement. My predecessor is a man by the name of Hieronymus. I'm going to show a photograph of the Apollo 11 astronauts. Hieronymus, the inventor, who had a scalar energy laboratory, worked with NASA, and the 3 astronauts were monitored during Apollo 11. And Hieronymus, working obviously here in the United States, had an instantaneous reading on the photographs as the astronauts were in outer space, were on the surface of the moon or orbiting the moon. Meaning what? The photograph registered their organ function or their heartbeat 250,000 miles away in real time. In real time. So evidently, the force field of the photograph was connected to the astronauts on the moon.
So you're saying that he was able to determine like where they needed different support across their organ systems based on the feedback he got from the photo?
Yes, that's correct.
Is there any NASA documentation of this?
Yeah, actually, I have the report on my website about monitoring of the Apollo 11 astronauts. And that was presented, again, Galen Hieronymus, the inventor, was working hand in hand with NASA back in the 60s. But, it's never been taken up. This takes time and effort. And no scientific group has ever followed up on this yet.
Are there any other like well-known scientific groups that have experimented with it, such as NASA?
No, and I'll tell you why. You need an instrument. In order for you to play golf, you need a golf course. You need a pair of golf clubs. Yeah. That's the key here. A lot of people read a book on golf, but does that mean you're a golfer? No.
But did Hieronymus or any of the others who had similar technologies work with other large groups?
Yeah, Hieronymus was in demand. The federal government was working with him for a while. He was trying to introduce his work to the FDA and various government agencies. But this is back in the 50s and 60s in his heyday, and he was way advanced.
How do people get started with this? What's the process look like to go from hearing about it now to likely skeptical as I am currently, but I'm keeping an open mind and I want to try it at the end of this as well and see what I notice and I'll report that. What's the process look like?
The best way for me to inculcate these matters is not just by speaking, but by doing. Okay. Go to my website. We offer 15 days of free sessions. Just email us a bus shot. Okay. Just a bus shot, just your face. You can include your family. If you have children, by all means. And we will treat you for 15 days for free. And we're going to identify and negate microbes. We're going to download nutrients. And every day we're going to perform 1 hour of a chakra balancing. Your chakras will be balanced and you're going to feel the sense of peace and tranquility. That's the best way for me to prove it, for you to prove it to yourself. Keep in mind, my work is groundbreaking. It's different. And as a unique approach, this is the only way you're going to get it from me, from my website. I don't think anybody else has developed these instruments to the point I have.
How can people find you, follow your work, and sign up via your website?
The website, scalarlight.com, SCALAR, scalarlight.com.
You mentioned earlier that for certain things, it takes a bit longer, like up to a month or two. What's the usual timeline? Like for some of the better results you've seen, does it take longer than the 2 weeks?
It does. I've unveiled this new program. I'm starting to work with people with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. And I project that to reprogram the mind, that's what I'll have to reprogram the mind. It'll be probably 8 to 12 months, but we'll see significant progress. I'll let you know next year at this time how successful that program is.
So I send you a photo via your website and then I just wait. Do I do anything or is that it?
That's it. We'll send you daily emails. We'll explain to you what we're doing on a daily basis. And then you just consider, maybe journal, consider how you feel before and after. That's what I like about my work. There's no obligation. You don't change your diet. You don't change your living routine. I do all the work by way of your photographic force field.
Well, it'd be really cool, anyone listening in, if you want to run an experiment to do a baseline blood test or some kind of self-quantification test, maybe even just look at the data on your Oura ring and take a note of when you're starting, run the 2-week experiment, and then do another follow-up test, whether it's blood or wearable data, whatever, and let us know what you find because I'm going to be trying this and I'm excited to hear what impact it has on others as well. I have a couple more questions for you before we wrap up for the day. If there was a worldwide burning of the books, but you get to save the works of 3 teachers, who would you choose and why?
I would save the Bible first and foremost. That's our moral code. And then the other two, I'd leave that up to humanity. That's a tough decision. I would save the Bible, though, definitely.
If people want to explore this realm, some of the science behind it, are there any resources that you recommend? Perhaps your website has all of the science and background necessary, or anywhere else?
No, it's Tesla. Tesla's still the master. Everybody, myself included, can learn from Tesla. Try and read some of Tesla's original notes. Especially his autobiography or his notes from Colorado Springs. Read those notes.
Okay. And what is one thing the Scalar Light tribe does not know about you?
Meaningful travel. When you go visit someplace, spend 3, 4, 5 days there, not just an afternoon. I love to travel. When you travel, you experience different cultures, a different way of living. You educate yourself. It's pleasurable, but it's also an education.
Totally agree with you. I'm in India right now, so I'm doing that very thing.
Good for you. Yeah, good for you.
Well, if people have made it this far, what are any final thoughts or parting wisdom you have for them?
Let's go back to the basics. Try and pray and meditate every day. I've always contended that prayer changes the world, and now I can understand why. Prayer is a scalar form. You're broadcasting scalar energy. So you not only advance yourself, but you'll advance mankind. It's positive energy. Scalar energy is always positive. It's always uplifting. So what is prayer? It's always positive. It's always uplifting.
Are there any ways of people who are non-religious taking advantage of prayer?
Sure they do. By positive thinking. That's a form of prayer. There's a lot of health coaches out there. There's a lot of business coaches that say, let's be positive. What are the goals that we have today? Well, in many ways, a goal is a form of prayer. You're not praying to God necessarily, but you have this intention. You have these goals. You have these instructions. And it starts with intelligence. And then eventually you have a business plan that unfolds.
Perfect. Well, Tom, thank you for joining me on the podcast. This was an interesting one. I'm excited to testing out your service and looking forward to hearing some of the feedback I get from the audience on how their trials go as well.
My pleasure. Thank you for the audience. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Until next time, I'm Nick Urban here with Tom Paladino, signing out from mindbodypeak.com. Have a great week and be an outlier. I hope that this has been helpful for you. If you enjoyed it, subscribe and hit the thumbs up. I love knowing who's in the 1% committed to reaching their full potential. Comment 1% below so that I know who you are. For all the resources and links, meet me on my website at mindbodypeak.com. I appreciate you and look forward to connecting with you. As a reminder, the information depicted in this video is for information purposes only. Please consult your primary healthcare professional before making any lifestyle changes.